want to introduce you, Hannah Barrett. You are so warmly welcome to Livsenergi and our podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You know, this is your book. This is your doing.
Yes.
This is the Swedish version.
I know. I've got a copy in my cupboard. It's so exciting to see it in Swedish. Like, it makes me really happy. And I love that they kept the UK cover as well, and it still looks so good.
Yeah. So we had a great production process with this book, and I love it. So I want to just let you know that this book is not only, the content to me is a perfect level of what you want as a beginner, new and curious to yoga. And for one like me, who's been practicing yoga for 20 plus years, but I need some inspiration and help in my home practice.
Oh, yes. Okay. That makes me really happy.
Yes. And, I've always been interested in yoga, but I haven't dug super deep into creating my own practice at home.
Yeah.
And many times, especially during the pandemic, I was kind of sad about that, because I just wanted, something really easy and tangible that I could just, go into. I do practice yoga at home, but sometimes you need some inspiration. And this is a really good book for this.
Yeah, you do absolutely need that inspiration. And actually, what I really want to share is when I roll out my yoga mat, I get this feeling, and it's hard to describe, but it's basically like a feeling of coming home, and actually it can be really, really scary. Like, you've been doing it for a long time, but yet just, taking that step onto your mat and doing your own thing can feel really kind of like, oh, what happens if I do it wrong? But there is no wrong. You just play around, and very quickly over time, you will just be like, okay, do you know what? This is what I need today. And then that will make you feel really magical, because you are actually listening to yourself, which is difficult and sounds really hard and funny to say that it's difficult, but often our brain takes over and we're like, okay, power yoga practice today, go. That's what you need. But actually what you need is a whole load of bolsters and restorative child's pose.
Exactly. So, and that's what I think that you have done a very good job with catching that in the book, because you have sequences for different moods and to help you lift certain energies in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And then but from there you can go anywhere. Like, you can mix the poses, you can decide to do it in a different way. Like, the world's your oyster.
Exactly. So, Hannah Barrett, we are super happy to have you here, because we know we'd like to get to know you better.
Okay.
So, who are you? Where are you from? And I guess you're a yoga teacher, but we want to know the background story leading you up to where you are today.
Okay, so I have a slightly strange background story in the fact that I don't think many people have done what I've done, in the way that actually my background, so I'm from the UK, I've always been from the UK, around-ish London, lived in London then for many, many, many years, and we've just moved out, as I was saying before we started recording, I've just moved out to Surrey, so I'm still about half an hour away by train, but I've just got a little bit more countryside now, which is needed. But my background's in maths, and I went to university and studied maths and statistics. It's actually where I met my husband, who was studying maths as well. And then I left university and then trained to be an actuary, or qualified as an actuary. No one ever knows what it is. And often people, when they think they know what it is, they've misheard me and think I say actress, but no. And actually, basically, we do, there are all different branches you can go into, but we put value on uncertain events. So I used to specialize in pensions, and I used to specialize in helping trustees of pension schemes sell their pension schemes to an insurer. So we used to work on these big projects, and it was, I loved my job. I loved my job, but it was long hours, like seriously long hours. When we were in the midst of a project, you could pull all nighters, you could be in the office till gone midnight. It was just long. And then I got engaged to my husband that I'd met at university. And I suddenly just thought, I am so stressed, and I have been so stressed since childhood. Like exams, I always put so much pressure on myself. I was a perfectionist, which I know lots of people can relate to. And I just thought, you know, we'd been together a long time, like 9 years by the time we married. So we knew what we wanted, and we wanted to have children quite quickly. We were 30 at this point, or just turning 30. And I just thought, I need to manage this. And so I'd been doing yoga before then, but I was really into the gym at the time. So I do the odd yoga class every week, every 2 weeks. And I just thought, I want to use it to manage my stress. So I actually started a home practice. That was because I just needed the flexibility, and the classes were at the wrong time for me. So I used to do it first thing in the morning. I got really into it before I got married. And then after we got married, I carried it on, a daily practice at this point, actually. And then I fell pregnant straight away. So then I paused for part of the first trimester because I had a bit of a scare, but then I took it up, and I actually got like a one-on-one lesson every week or 2 weeks to tell me how to modify my practice during pregnancy. But then I carried on the self-practice because I had fallen in love with it by that stage, and it was what I needed, and it just massively helped me. So then yoga massively helped me through pregnancy, which really, I suppose, was the beginning of my story, inspired me to go on to then what I did. But then after I had my son, who's Jack, who's now 7, I found it really difficult first in motherhood. He had reflux, he didn't sleep, you know, it was just exhausting. And yoga really supported me during that time. And then I just got hit by this realization: what am I doing? Like, do I want to go back to this job, which is going to be incredibly stressful when I've got a child as well? Like, I found it stressful before then. And what am I doing? I'm not going to be able to, you know, I wanted flexibility, and I was really lucky that I could. So I quit my job and basically followed this passion of yoga. And this idea at first was to share it with mothers and people who are pregnant, and to help them feel supported during their pregnancy and postpartum with yoga. And then I suppose through the years, it became more than that. And it just became like, look, how actually can I share this with everyone? Because it should be this accessible practice that is accessible to everyone, not just a certain type of person. You don't have to be able to do the splits to be whatever you think you need to be. Anyone can practice yoga. I do lots of chair yoga with people as well, to prove that you don't even need to be able to stand up. So that was a real passion of mine, to go, right, we need to make this inclusive. It's ridiculous that it's not. It's literally the opposite of what yoga wants to make it not. That was a lot of talking, sorry.
No, I love it. So we got a long story, very compact.
In a nutshell.
Yes. So you have a passion to give yoga away to everyone.
Yes, exactly. And I feel so content, I suppose. I feel so joyful about my career now, and you know, and how it's progressed, because as I said, I loved my job before, but like this one is so much more fulfilling when you can see how yoga can transform someone's life, because it can. And I just to put this in here, because I try and be really clear about this in the book, it's not this magic pill. Like, you know, if you're going through something huge, and we'll probably go on to talk about what happened when my daughter was born, but if you're going through a big trauma or something huge in your life, you starting yoga or opening my book isn't going to be you know, a click your fingers, oh, I feel amazing, I'm so content with my whole life. It's not like that. But what it can do is share these tools that basically support you, so give you resilience and strength when you need it. And also the main thing is just understand yourself. And I suppose, and I always kind of roll my eyes when I say this, but it is true, like basically love yourself and find that self-love and self-care, and understanding that you are worth it, and you have to look after yourself first before you can actually share that love to other people.
Yeah. So as you know, I will come in a bit on spirituality. And I mean, for me, yoga is one of my first ways into spirituality. And for me, spirituality is more a lot about loving yourself and being content within. And so I think that what is so nice with this book is that you have the good combination of the theory and the philosophy of yoga, and the asanas, the practice, the physical practice. And I was also talking about debunking myths. And I think that a lot of people are focusing too much on the asanas and physical practice and think that is yoga. But actually, to me, yoga is a tool to get to know yourself better and live a better, loving life. How do you feel about that?
That's so beautifully put. You've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. It's not just the movements. It's basically a way of life. You roll out your yoga mat, you practice yoga, but you walk off your yoga mat, you practice yoga again. It's something that you live. What's interesting is that lots of people get drawn in by the asana, which is great because, you can go to a class where someone is talking at you, lots of the theory, lots of Sanskrit. And if it's your first class, it can be too much. It can feel like you're being preached at. It can be the wrong thing for you. It could be the right thing for someone else. And that's great. But actually, some people just need to be eased in to understand actually how the asana feels, how connecting to the breath, finding that kind of mind-body connection. And then from there, then you go in and you weave in the theory. So with my classes, when I teach, I try and have a theme that will be based on philosophy, but it's trying to weave it in without feeling like I'm preaching at people, and to make it, I suppose, not only relevant to the roots of yoga, but relevant how could that apply to today? And that's what I try to do in the book as well, to go, what does this mean when you say ahimsa, non-violence? What does that mean? Or what can that mean for you? Because loads of people can have different ideas of what that means, right?
Very true. Yeah, non-violence, and it could be close to you and it could be far away from you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Geographically or domestically. So I will show just a few pages here because the quality of the paper.
Oh, it's so lovely, isn't it?
It's super nice. So, just the feeling of this, it's a book that I want to have on my coffee table all the time because it kind of gives me
I've got one on my coffee table.
Exactly.
That's really cheesy, but I love it. The illustrator who we got on board, she's called Eleanor Hardiman, and she is just, when she sent over the initial proposal after we kind of sent the brief, I was just like, yes, you are the one. She's so wonderful.
And just because you're saying that, I'm going to show some of the illustrations. I mean, the photos are of you, and I mean, they're super beautiful, and it's so tastefully made, and and a lot of these books are not. So I was so happy to find this. I'm just going to show a few of the illustrations as well. Yeah, so like this.
With the photos, like they're so wonderful. We tried to basically, I didn't want me showing the poses because I wanted to, again, have that kind of more inclusive feel of it in it. But with the photography, again, we didn't want it to be just, me doing handstand and all these crazy poses. It was just trying to portray, the real yoga, real life yoga.
The real person, the anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a book for anyone. That's what I feel really well, because our members in the book club, first of all, this book will be launched in our book club. That's a book club focused on the body, mind, spirit segment. So we know that they are interested in this subject. So some of them are new to yoga and some of them are old to yoga, they have been practicing yoga for a while. So it's my job to make sure that I find the right book that caters to the broad members, the broad number of members. Yeah. So, and I think this book is a really good tool for that.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful feedback.
Good. So how did you get into yoga in the first place? Because I know that you said that you were doing yoga before you actually
got my yoga. Yeah. So I started my daily practice in about 2014. Before then, like, I don't know, I can't even remember. I can't remember specifically when the first class I went to, but I do remember being in one of my first class and just being put in child's pose and saying, and my teacher said something like, just breathe in, breathe out, and just got me focusing on my breath. And I just thought, I don't know the last time when I actually, focused on my breath. And it's interesting because now I try and do lots of work with corporates and go in and talk to corporates, because I lived in that environment for 10 years. And I now know how much my yoga of what I know now could have helped me back then, just deal with these stress levels and actually just it's all about taking that pause, and whether it's taking a breath, taking a moment to have a meditation or whatever it is, but giving yourself that clarity to see the bigger picture. Because when we're stressed, and whatever it is that's stressing us out, whether it's work, whether it's something at home, we get this kind of tunnel vision and we just try and get through things sometimes, and we just go, and don't stop and just think, hang on a second, perspective, what do I need to be doing? What's right for me right now? And that would have been really useful for me back then. So in terms of like when I got into it, I couldn't even tell you when, but it was for the asana. It definitely was for the asana, in terms of I was going to the gym and I knew my flexibility, like I couldn't even touch my toes. So I was like, I could do some yoga because it will make me more flexible, which is, laughable now but that's how I'd always thought of it. And that's how it'd kind of been portrayed in my life. And then it wasn't, as I said, until I got engaged and I was like, I need to manage my stress levels. Actually, in these yoga classes I'm doing that were just in my local gym, I realized that they were making me feel different and giving, it wasn't just about the fact that I could now touch my toes and all that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
When I have a pause with yoga and don't do yoga for a while, I've been together with my husband for 20 plus years. And I always tell him when I come back, he always asks me, how was it? And I tell him, I can't understand why I don't do this more often, because it's like waking up every cell in my body.
Yeah, I get that.
Can you relate?
I can totally relate to that. It's so
And, I do understand that it can become a passion to have more people have that experience.
Yeah. And it is because you can do it in so many ways as well. It doesn't have to be an hour-long class.
Yeah.
It can just be 10 minutes. It can be 10 minutes of just sitting down and moving mindfully, or even just in the morning. I love a kind of bed flow, 5-minute little stretch, just kind of getting my spine moving in all directions and listening to my breath rather than reaching for my phone and looking at the news or social media. And it's the best way to start the day.
Yeah.
And actually, I always start the day with a meditation. That's what I always try and do. And when that falls away, if I life gets too hectic, I always know, I can always feel, and then I always try and bring it back.
Yeah.
That's
and whatever we do want, we do get back eventually when it's time for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what place does yoga have in your life today? I mean, you have you, of all people, you have the before and the after version of yourself, being in the stressful moment and then being where you are today. So how can you see the difference in yourself, not only from a stress level, but perhaps as a person, towards yourself and towards your surrounding? What's the difference?
One, I have the understanding now that, I think some people might think, oh, well, Hannah Barrett, she is just zen all the time. She's got it together. It's not how it is. Like, I still have very stressful moments, very stressful weeks. I have peaks in anxiety, but now I feel like I can deal with them, that I have the tools to deal with them, that I have that kind of trust that I know things are going to get better, and it's okay to feel as I'm feeling in that moment. And I always use the example of when you have young children, mornings before school can be very stressful. Lost socks, like bags not in the car, whatever it is. We tend to always be running late. And so, you know, it can be that times I lose my mind in the mornings, and whether, like, if I can get it before I'm about to explode, I can just literally just walk out the room, take 5 breaths, feel like I can deal with it, because your breath is like magic, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But you've got so much, you can harness so much strength from your breath, because it can change the way you feel. Or if I start shouting, because I'm human and that happens, I can always then now I then speak, we get in the car, and for some reason when we get in the car, it's like a switch, we all like chill and we're all good, and then we talk about it, and I'm like, sorry mummy shouted, but XYZ, this happened and it made me feel really, you know, it made me feel really stressed, or whatever it is. And then we talk about it, and we talk about how we can be better the next day. And I feel like just having that communication line with my children is really important, because it shows that I'm not perfect. I shout too, and actually that's okay. It's good to have emotions, and we can talk through it. But going back to this point on the breath, because I think that's a really useful first tool for people to have. Mm-hmm. And often, you know, maybe we can do this together now. So close your eyes.
Yeah.
Everyone who's listening, close their eyes. And just bring to mind something, anything in your life that you're finding stressful right now. It can be big, it can be small. Just bring to mind whatever that is. And then as you bring that thing to mind, notice how you're feeling. Are you feeling a bit of a constriction in your chest? Are you feeling it in your belly? There's no right, wrong answer, but whatever you're feeling, just note it. And then breathe in through the nose. And as you do, feel expansion through the belly, all the way around through the ribs, all the way to your heart. And then as you exhale through really thinly parted lips, and blow out that breath like you're blowing out a golden thread of energy. And then again, breathe in, find that expansive breath, think 360 all the way around the body. And then exhale, blow out that golden thread, and see if you can make that breath that little bit longer. We're going to do 3 more. Breathe in. Breathe out, let it go. And again, breathing in. Breathing out, letting go. Last time, deep inhale. And then super, super long exhale, slowly, mindfully release. And then as you bring the breath back to the natural rhythm, just start to notice how you feel. And if any of that feeling of stress in your body, even if it's just released that tiny bit, how huge is that? Mm-hmm. Okay, now blink your eyes open. So we have this tool, and so you will have noticed, hopefully, when you're feeling stressed, our breath gets caught, it gets shallow, it gets into our chest. And actually, if we change the way we breathe, we do a breath like that, where we breathe fully, where we extend the exhale, we can bring ourselves into a calmer state, into a more restored state. So when we get stressed, our body gets into, our sympathetic nervous system takes over, this fight or flight system. You may have, you know, we often hear this kind of related to caveman days. We had this system, fight or flight. Or do you run from the saber-toothed tiger, or do you fight? So what our body does is we get adrenaline, we get all these things happen. Our blood gets thicker in case the tiger scratches us, and we need to make sure that we don't bleed out. Our digestive system stops working because we don't need to digest food. We need our energy into our limbs. The issue is that since caveman times, things are very, very different. We are hit by stresses every single day that look very different to a saber-toothed tiger, but our stress response hasn't changed. So what we need to learn about more is how can we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest system, the system that changes that response, that gets our digestive system working, that lowers our heart rate, that calms our body. And so that's what yoga helps us do. It can help us bring us into that more balanced state. Because the truth is, lots of us are living a very, very stressed life just because life looks very different.
Do you think it's common that we don't recognize the stress in our lives and just go on with it?
Yeah, we get, things become normal. Let's use our phones as example. It's normal to have our phone with us 24/7. It's by our bedside as we sleep. It's in our hand first thing in the morning. We're watching TV and it's right by us. And that's a form of stress. All the things, the blue light, the notifications, like all of it is doing something to our body, and it becomes normality. And I'm not judging people, because I'm one of those people as well. And I really have to be mindful about when I have phone time and when I don't have phone time.
Yeah.
But it is difficult. And one thing yoga helps us do, and you said it really clearly, is that we start to just connect better to ourselves and understand ourselves better when we get on the yoga mat. And it changes every cell in your body. You said, like, everything feels more alive, and you just get that moment of going, hang on a second, how am I feeling today? What am I feeling like? Where am I feeling it? And it's not just about how your physical body feels. You actually connect in the mind as well.
So this is a new question. I haven't thought about this before, but I wonder, what do you think is the difference? I mean, since I feel a big difference from doing yoga compared to going to the gym and working out on muscles. So what is the physical, biological difference? What is it that makes us feel so spiritual in the yoga practice?
So my view on this, and I'm sure other people would have different views, is it's the mindfulness element. It's the fact that you're doing it mindfully. And you could go to the gym and be super mindful, but the gym is quite, it's probably activating your sympathetic nervous system. It's like a stress, and you get your endorphins and you get like a buzz that way. But a yoga practice, I suppose, is more whole, and there are flows that you'll do that will activate the sympathetic nervous system, but then there are tools that you use to bring you back into balance. So it's that more balanced practice, I suppose. But for me, it's the fact that you're being mindful in what you do. You're thinking about where you're placing your hands, your feet. You're thinking about sensations. You're connecting to your breath. Yeah. What I said at the beginning about me not realizing how I breathed before that moment in class, lots of people can relate to that, because life's so busy, we don't think about it, right?
Yeah, and the combination of inner work and outer work at the same time is not something that we're used to doing every minute of the day.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I think it's getting better in today's world in terms of we're paying much more attention on mental health, but people do still focus a lot on their physical health. That's at the forefront of people's minds. Mm-hmm. And there isn't as big a push for mental health.
No. Well, mental health is a big problem, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, on Monday it was World Mental Health Day, and it's so I shared my story of what happened with Emily and what happened to me after that. And I was reading.
Your daughter?
Pardon?
That's your daughter?
My daughter, yeah, that's my daughter. But I was reading all these other people's stories as well, and it is so wonderful, because it's so hard to be vulnerable and share those difficult times. But the more people that can do it when you feel ready, when you feel secure enough in yourself to be able to do it, the better, because it makes those people who are struggling right now to feel less alone, to feel like they can reach out and get help, to see that someone went through this massive thing and they've got through the other side. And again, it's this knowledge that there are going to be peaks and troughs, but you're going to get through it.
Yeah. Do you want to share your story here with us?
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it to a nutshell. But so my second child, my little girl, Emily, who's now 5, pregnant with her again, foolishly thought it was going to be exactly the same as my son. But from around 20 or 28 weeks, the point we knew something was wrong. She was very small. I was having scans every week, every 2 weeks to make sure what was going on. They didn't really know what was going on. I think now, because I've been for tests since having children, it's I basically don't grow a very good placenta. It doesn't really work. But so we scan after scan, it got scarier and scarier. And the fact that I remember the last scan I had, they wouldn't let me leave the hospital without speaking to a consultant. And then that consultant basically said, look, you're going to have this baby early. We just need to figure out when. So basically be prepared, but you're not going to go past 37 weeks. And that was about 34, maybe 34 and a half weeks at that point. So I remember me and my husband went home. We were like, oh God, okay, that was a bit of a shock. Packed the hospital bag, thank God, because that night then I woke up in the middle of the night and I just thought, I don't know what woke me up. I don't know what had happened, but I just was like, I don't know, I think something's wrong kind of thing. And I went to the bathroom and basically had a horrendous bleed and thought I was miscarrying. Got taken to hospital. And then I was in hospital actually until I gave birth to her. And they said, you've had a partial placental abruption. The risk is too high that it will be a full placenta, and then the placental abruption, and then that risks mine and Amelie's life, obviously. So we're going to induce you. So then I got induced with her. And then, we knew when we were sitting in that consultant's office, they told us the chance of her being in NICU, in the neonatal intensive care. We knew that the chance was really high. Oh God, it gives me shivers thinking about it, but you don't know what that means. And you can't explain to anyone what that means until you go through it. So she was sent to NICU. They didn't know what she had at the time, but we later found out she had sepsis. She couldn't breathe properly. She couldn't feed properly. She had a heart issue. They thought she had a brain issue. Like it was horrendous. It was an awful time, but it was weird because actually in that moment, I just went into like my yoga mode and was like, what? I can't think about what happened to me, because that was the whole episode where I like wake up in the night and bleeding, that had given me big trauma. Like that was just, I thought I'd lost my baby. It was awful. So I can't think about the past. I don't want to think about the future because there's no point. Like I can't worry about what's going to happen. I've just got to be in this moment right now. And then, the first 3, 4, 5 days, actually the first week, were really kind of like, right, the doctors were like, we're taking a day at a time. We're not kind of talking about what could happen. We're just taking a day at a time. And I wasn't allowed to hold her. So I held her when she was born, and I wasn't allowed to hold her until 4 or 5 days after she was born. And I just had to sit by her incubator just because she was too sick, which is really difficult. And I remember going in and they'd said, oh, you can hold her tomorrow. And I was so excited, and I went in really early, and the NICU nurses are incredible, but there was only this one nurse who just didn't have the kind of bedside manner. She didn't, I'm sure she was amazing at her job, but she didn't have this bedside manner. Anyway, I went in, and Amelie was on this new something for her lungs, basically, where she was on her tummy, and whatever machine it was making her vibrate. Because I think it was trying to clear her lungs. I don't know exactly what it was. And for some reason, even though I'd been in the hospital, they'd rung my husband to ask him. And obviously he'd said, yeah, put her on this machine. That's fine. Because he was obviously at home with my son. And I just was like, oh my God, I thought I was going to hold my baby today. And I thought she was having a fit. And I just, and then someone came and explained to me what was going on. But it was wrapped with trauma. But she got through it. She got fine. And we were able to walk out of hospital with a little girl who was very little still. She was only 4 pounds, but she was okay. And she was going to be okay. And, that, I think that in itself was an issue for me because of the fact that she was okay. And I knew awful stories of people not getting to the point, not walking out of the hospital, that I didn't give myself permission to grieve, permission to process the trauma. And then, of course, I had a 4-pound baby who had horrendous reflux, like projectile vomiting across the room, who basically couldn't feed off me because of her reflux. So I decided to express every single one of her feeds. Had a toddler at home, was kind of bottle feeding her, but feeds took an hour and a half because of her reflux. So anyway, it was just, when you say that being, sometimes we don't realize we're in a stressful situation. I didn't quite process that I was in this horrendously stressful situation, not just because what had happened, but it was extremely stressful anyway. And it got to about 3-4 months and I basically broke apart. And then I was diagnosed with PTSD after what happened, postnatal depression. And yes, yoga massively helped me. It was a big part of my recovery, but so was therapy, because I had to process what had happened to me. And, you know, I was having panic attacks that I remember now. And it's weird because I haven't seen one of these adverts since, but probably haven't actually clocked it. They have like a Pampers small baby nappy advert. And every time it came on TV, it would give me a panic attack. I just couldn't deal with it. So yeah, that's my story basically. And Amelie is fine now. She's good. You wouldn't even know she was premature. She's a little warrior. She's amazing. She loves yoga as well. Mainly not me teaching her, mainly someone else teaching her, but that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's a trauma story. Definitely. I hope you're okay today.
No, I am. I'm okay. I've done a lot. I've done a lot of work being okay. And as I say, like it was hard at first to share my story, but now I try and share my story regularly. And whenever I do, I feel like mums just need to not feel alone. It can be so lonely being a mum. And so, you know, if my story helps one person, then boom, that's the, you know, that's great.
Yeah. And in that moment, I have 3 children. So in that moment of birth, all you can think about is the life of the child.
Yeah.
And if that's in danger, I don't know what I would do, really.
And then, but like since then, I work with a charity called Born Charity here in the UK, and they basically research premature birth and are trying to understand it because it affects a lot of people. Me and my husband just had a conversation at some point in the first year of Amelie's life, and we're just like, how lucky, how privileged are we that we have the NHS, that we had this incredible hospital, that they had a NICU unit, that they were able to act, because if we hadn't had that, she wouldn't be alive today. And that, unfortunately, is the case for so many people. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad she's okay. I'm glad. What's the name of your son?
So Jack's my son.
Jack and Amelie. What made you write this book?
This is just the book I wish I'd had. I wish I'd had when I was a teenager. I wish I'd had in my 20s when I was going into this career, this big career, full throttle. And I just wish I'd had the tools in this book to help me through life, to help me understand myself better, to help me just deal with life better. And like you were saying earlier, the fact that yoga can be very much focused on the asana, I wanted to try and share the other bits of yoga, the roots of yoga, what yoga actually is, in an accessible way. So in a way that it wouldn't seem scary, people could grasp. And I hope that's achieved that. And I hope some of the kind of journaling questions people can ponder on, because it's just such a wonderful tool to have. Like, as you say, it's a holistic life that we live. It's not just a trikonasana triangle pose or a downward facing dog.
You know, that's very true. So when talking about the philosophy of yoga, can you just give us a brief introduction to what does the philosophy of yoga contain? So what is it we live by?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is very much in a nutshell, but there are said to be 8 limbs of yoga. And one of those limbs is asana, which we talked about, but there are all these other limbs as well. And there's breath work, and there's something called pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal. But the first 2 rings on this ladder, I suppose, are called the yama and niyama. And they are basically 10 ethical principles we can live our life by, and about how we treat ourselves and how we treat other people. And we mentioned one already. So ahimsa, which is non-violence, or I like to think of it as love, and basically giving ourselves more love, but other people. And what are we doing in our lives? Not just physical harm, but what are we doing in our lives to create more love? And that can even be things like, how are you treating the planet? Are you recycling like you should be recycling? Like, this is super simplified, but it spreads out to all kinds of things. And one thing that I talk to my kids about a lot as well is the ripple effect. So if someone's being unkind to you at school, which is going to happen in life, not just in school, you can choose, you're on a path there, you can choose to be unkind back and to follow that pathway, or you can choose to take a step back, to maybe have a bit of empathy, what's going on with them, why are they acting like this, perhaps something's going on at home, and actually act with kindness, or walk away. You can choose to walk away. But the more we do that, the more we spread kindness, as an example, the more you're going to have a ripple effect, and people are going to see that, and people are going to follow you. And actually, as a parent, you're a big leader, because kids don't do what you say, they follow what you do. So actually, you need to be kind. And actually, as I was giving an example earlier, when you do something wrong, you need to say sorry, and you need to kind of have that communication. But there's like some people say a seed, you plant seeds and then they grow, and you basically, it's spreading this ripple effect. But that's the kind of philosophy. There are these 10 principles, and they can seem super overwhelming. As I say, if they're kind of just, if you read them in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is kind of one of the heart books of yoga, if you read the Yoga Sutras, and I obviously read it many a time, and I remember reading it in my teacher training and just thinking, whoa, like what does that mean? I had a translated version, but it was just so much for me at that point. And now every time I go back to it, I'm like, oh yes, okay, I get it more now. But it's like, how can we break this down so it's not overwhelming at first, that you can kind of start to understand and then apply it to your life?
Yeah. Do you find an interest in inner evolution, like inner development, becoming a better person, version of yourself?
Absolutely. And yoga has helped me do that in myself. Yeah, I think most people need to put in the work.
And I can see that you're also transferring that into your family and your children.
I'm trying to. It's hard, right? You've got 3. I don't know how you manage with 3.
And they're teenagers now. So I think this kind of parentship of trying to make them really good people, that's my mission. Yeah. It's not always so easy, actually, because every child is or every person is different, and yeah, you just have to. But I feel inspired to find a way through it. Yeah. So if you don't know, if you don't get that person to understand you, or if you don't feel that you have the connection that you want, okay, so how can we find that connection? So that's been my best moments in motherhood has been when I can actually find that tunnel through.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Having teenagers, like, I feel like I'm always thinking, right, okay, yeah, I've got this. And then something else will happen and I'll be like, oh gosh. But like, teenagers is a different kettle of fish, right?
It is, but it can also be a very smooth sailing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. I think I'm blessed, actually, as with my children. We don't have the really, the rocky part. Not really. Who is the reader of this book? What do you think? I
think it's someone who's curious, a beginner who has just always been thinking about it. And I love the thought of that person reading it, because reading the kind of the debunking the myths, thinking, actually, yes, I can do this, and then getting them excited about doing it. I was on a podcast a few months ago, and the woman who was talking to me was like, I've always been put off, but you've inspired me to try. And I was like, that's amazing. But also for those people that have been doing it for a long time, perhaps, and just want to understand a little bit more to get a more rounded practice and to bring it more into their lives. So I feel like it could be for anyone and everyone. And as I said, like I hopefully my children will read it when they're teenagers, and it will just help them understand themselves a little bit better.
And that's a good point, because it's a book that actually can cater to not anyone of interest, of different interest to yoga, but also in age groups. So you can actually read it young, and you can read it when you're older.
Yeah. One of my new friends from a village I lived in, very sadly, his wife passed away completely out of the blue, wasn't expected. And it's hard in those situations, because we, like, as humans, we just want to help, we want to fix it, and we can't, because it's just this awful thing that's happened. Time, it's going to take time. But one of the things that I did do, amongst others, was give him one of my book, and I was like, I'm not expecting you to do it, but the breathing exercises could help you, and if they do, I was like, give the book away if you don't find it useful. But he tried it, and he said that the breathing exercise did help. And it's just, so you don't have to even pick it up to do the movement. Like, you can flick forward and go to the breath section and see if something in there can actually give you a little bit of strength, or whatever it is that you need, energy, calm.
And there are sections of the book that you can, just like you say, you can just flip to the section that you need today. About the myths of yoga, is there anything that we should debunk more than we have already?
The flexible one, you have to be flexible to practice yoga, is like, I feel like it's actually the opposite of that if someone is really inflexible, then yoga is going to be incredible in their lives. And actually, a forward fold you don't have to get your hands on the floor. You're still doing a forward fold if your knees are bent and your hands are on blocks. And just making sure people are okay with that and understand that is really important. Pick the right class for you. Don't as a beginner go into an advanced yoga class, because that you are going to walk out, probably run out the room being screaming. But try and see if you can find an in-person like beginner class. Can be really helpful, because you have a teacher there, they can see your body, they can do adjustments on you or talk you through poses. And then what's another one that you have to, that it's too easy? I love that one. That let's use my husband example. He won't like this, but he's very strong. My husband, he goes to the gym, he's super strong, but he finds my classes really hard, and he doesn't do them very often. It's just when I do like events, but he finds them hard because of the fact that he doesn't have very good flexibility, or even its mobility is not that great either, because of all the strength work he does. And a yoga class doesn't have to look like being propped up on bolsters, although that can be wonderful. It can be very dynamic. There can be a lot of movement. You can get super sweaty. You can work out harder than you would in a gym. So it doesn't have to be too easy. And then the flip side, that yoga is too hard. Again, the wonderful thing about yoga is you have all these different styles, all these different levels, all these different teachers, because I know that some people, again, my classes are not going to be right for them. It's not going to resonate with them. That's okay. The wonderful thing is there are so many yoga teachers and so many different classes out there, and, online classes, in-person classes, group classes, one-on-ones, that kind of thing. You actually can get something, whatever it is you're looking for, you're probably going to be able to find it. So there are a couple.
But also, that can also be a bit overwhelming, because there's so much. What should I choose?
What should you choose? So if you're a beginner, I'd say try and go for a beginner class, maybe something like hatha yoga, which is a bit slower, where you're focusing on alignment and learning the postures. If you've got that understanding and you want something creative, then something like a vinyasa flow can be really fun, where you basically piece different poses together using your breath. And, each class is going to look different. And then you've got, Ashtanga. Ashtanga is one actually that's not, I very, very rarely practice it because it doesn't feel good in my body. But if you like a set sequence where you know what you're doing every single time, then Ashtanga is the one for you, because it's exactly the same sequence.
Very physical.
Very, very, very physical, very physical. And then you've got restorative or yin yoga, where you're just holding postures and really, I suppose, dealing with a lot of the inner stuff that comes up during those classes. That, it's hard. It feels like it feels crazy to say, but that you just holding a pose for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, however long it is, can be really difficult, even when you're propped up. And, you know, everything's connected. And if you start doing deep hip opening poses, you know, and I've done classes before, and I'm sure many, many yoga teachers have as well. When you go towards the hips, you will invariably have someone bursting into tears in Shavasana. Like we hold all our emotions in our hips, and it unleashes a lot. So, yeah.
Actually, that part where emotions get stuck in our hips, I have a relative who actually have a lot of trauma in her body, and she didn't know this about the hips. And you know, I guess you don't really know until you experience it. But she completely fell out of it in a yoga class because of hip openers were too it got to her.
Yeah, and that isn't that is relatively common, actually.
Another myth to me for a long time was that you need to do yoga for 90 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And that actually kind of stopped me for a while, because I couldn't fit 90 minutes and back and forth to the yoga shala into my schedule. Mm-hmm. So what do you say?
What do I say? I say, do you know what? I can't remember the last time I did a 90-minute practice, because, you know, whether you've got children or whether you just have a very busy job, that shouldn't, like, the whole, I don't know where it came from, this whole 90-minute thing. Maybe it's Ashtanga, actually, because that's typically what it takes to get through the sequence. But it doesn't have to look like that. And it makes me sad that puts people off. As I was saying, getting up in the morning and doing a 10-minute yoga flow, even in your bed, or, you know, roll a mat out on your bedroom floor, that's enough. And, you know, if you start with 5, 10, 15 minutes and regularly, so every day, every other day, you'll find that when you do have that spare hour, that spare 90 minutes, that perhaps you will do a longer class. But creating the habit is so much better than doing a 90-minute class a month. Mm-hmm. Creating the habit is going to, you remember we talked about the ripples, it's going to ripple into the rest of your life. Like, you're going to reap the rewards from doing it. And people, please don't be put off. And I think one of the good things is that, you know, there are lots of classes out there. There's loads of yoga classes on YouTube, and there are lots of different times. So people can, if they don't feel like doing self-practice, they can very easily find a shorter class.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, today it looks very differently than it did 20 years ago. Yep. So I have a theory. Listen to this and see if you agree with me. Whether you want to get into yoga by the philosophical way or the more physical way of asanas,
yeah,
you are getting both parts. Because if you do the asanas, I started with asanas, I started with Ashtanga yoga, but it made me feel my body in a completely new and different way, you know, the awakening of every cell. Yeah. So it turned me inwards.
Yeah.
And if you start with the philosophy, perhaps it moves you to the mat, and you can actually have the physical effect as well.
I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree, because studying the philosophy, you are trying to do the best for yourself. And one of those things is to unlock awaken all the cells in your body, to make sure that you are kind of your physical health is peak as well. So yes, you can come in from different routes, and it's how wonderful is that?
Yeah. So we can actually do the test. Who are you? What kind of yogi are you? Are you the philosophical yogi or the practical yogi? And eventually you'll be both.
Yes.
Kind of.
Are you asking that to actual me?
No. I'm asking everyone.
I feel like you go through I feel like it's a bit of a wiggly road as well, because you might actually get really into your physical practice, and then you might need the kind of the softer, slower, more philosophical side. So again, it's probably a moving part, and it definitely is in my practice as well.
Yeah. What does a day for you look like? A typical day?
a typical day. So let's use today as an example. So I get up about 6 o'clock and I do a meditation. And then if I have time, I go through stages on whether I like doing this. I'll do some movement in the morning, but I don't push myself to do it, because actually sometimes I love to do it at 7 o'clock after the kids are in bed. So this morning I haven't done anything. I've been outside with the dogs. I try and get outside quite early on in the morning, just to kind of get into nature and just to take a breath and have a cup of tea. I then get all the kids' breakfast ready and get the kids up, and then we go to school, and then I come back. And obviously this morning I've had speaking to you, but I, as well as having Yoga Happy, I have my own app called Hannah Barrett Yoga. I'm going to announce this here because it might come out afterwards. I'm about to change the book, the app, sorry, to be called Yoga Happy. So that's happening in the next few weeks. So there's lots going on behind the scenes at the moment to get this all, the rebrand ready. And then I teach as well. So I do, in terms of like regular classes, I do one-on-one still. And then I do special kind of events for my app people, like in live classes, but everything still is actually online apart from in-person events. I just did Happy Place in the summer, and I'm doing a workshop on Friday at the Yoga show. So my life is just a balance between all these different projects I have going on and my children. Actually, the last one I'm doing as well is I'm launching a teacher training next year, early next year, with a really good friend of mine called Pereira, who is and she's a physio as well as being a yoga teacher. But she's also studying neuroscience. So we're going to bring a little bit of that into it as well, and just bring, I suppose, a little bit of a twist on yoga, but it's going to have all the roots of yoga too, and philosophy and all the breathing, and it's going to have everything in there. And we're working hard to get that ready at the moment, and I couldn't be more excited.
Wow. And it's going to take place in the UK?
It's going to be online, actually. So it's going to be accessible to everyone. It's a 200-hour training, online, mixture of on-demand and live sessions. We're getting specialists in as well. So we're getting a specialist philosophy teacher in. We're getting my friend Janelle Lewis to talk about inclusivity in the yoga world. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited.
You should be. That's a big job. It's a big project.
It is a big project, but you know, I'm so excited to be doing it with Celeste, and it's been a really wonderful process so far. I'm going to say this, and I'm tempt fate, but touch wood, it's been really stress-free and just really fun. And we're both so passionate about teaching others, that it feels like the right thing to do in the right time. And when she called me to ask me, I was like, yes, of course, let's do it.
So if I'm going to London, or next time I'm going to London, could I find you in a yogashala? Or
so I don't teach in studios anymore, apart from one-off events. So if you go to my website, hannahbarrettyoga.com, sign up to my mailing list, because everything event-wise goes on there. So I am teaching in London this Friday, as I said, but it's not like I have a regular class anymore, because I live too far away to make it work. But I am actually doing, again, I don't know if this will have come out by then, but I'm doing a DJ-led class in November. I think it's November the 3rd, with this incredible, so Tom Middleton. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he is awesome. So I met him, he's part of the Wanderlust family, and I'm in the Wanderlust team as well, I suppose. And we taught at the Wanderlust Festival last year together, and we just connected through that. And he's a DJ, but he's not really a DJ. He is a neuroscientist, and he does all this study. He's so amazing to talk to. Whenever I talk to him, it just lasts for ages, because I just find him fascinating. But he created one of the most popular series, I think, on Calm, which is a sleep series. So he literally gets listened to by millions of people every day, because he has this series on Calm. But anyway, so we're doing a DJ-led yoga class. It's going to be really fun.
And where do you find that Calm series?
Oh, on Calm. So he's on Calm. So that's not me on there, but he's on the Calm app.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because that, to me, music is very, it adds on an effect that I really appreciate, but it needs to be the right music.
I know it's really big, isn't it? I have to teach. When I teach classes, it has to be with music, but it can't just be a random playlist. Like, it has to be really well thought out. Yeah. And my bugbear is when I accidentally don't realize it's on shuffle, and the song comes on, and I'm like, this is not the right song. This is not the right order. Anyway, yeah, music is huge.
Yeah, it is good. So good luck with that one. If it was in Stockholm, I would definitely be there. Oh,
I need to come. As I was saying, I've got a good friend in Sweden, so I need to come one day.
Yeah, that would be fun. We could go to Uppsala.
Yeah, we could. Let's do it.
Yeah, you have a Yogaglädje there as well.
Yeah. Sorry, me or
no, but your friend.
Yeah, exactly. We can go there.
So I'm going to let you go in a minute. Just a few short questions to you. Mm-hmm. So you live in London, you have 2 children, you have 2 dogs, and you have a husband. Where in the, if you look at your first family when you were born, where in the number of children are you? Are you a big sister? Are you alone?
I'm a little sister. I've got a big brother.
You have a big brother, your little sister. Are you a typical little sister?
Yes.
Yes. Annoying?
Yes. Not anymore, but I was.
Yeah, of course. And what's your zodiac sign? Is that something you know?
So I know I'm Aries, and I know that I am actually a bit stereotypical Aries.
So do you have a motto in life?
So yeah, so I journal every day. I try to journal every day, and one of my affirmation that I write down, and the one I come back to the most, is don't sweat the small stuff. This reminder to look at the big picture, that those things that you're so stressed about now, are they big things or are they little things? And if they're little things, can you let that go? And actually that has been like a game changer for me. It's just it brings so much freedom to just put perspective on things. Actually, there's a lot going on in this world. There's a lot going on in life, and actually being stressed about the kids losing socks in the morning. Let's not.
That's a good one. Sometimes the easiest one or the smallest one are the most important ones.
Yeah. Exactly.
Reminders. So is there anything you want to say to your Swedish audience, to be?
All I want to say is hi. It's very nice to meet you all. And if you're listening, still on the fence, like, oh, is yoga for me? I'm feeling scared to try. Like, pull off the band-aid, jump in, feet first. Whether it's getting the book or whether it's just going to a class, just give it a go and see how you feel. And for those who are beginners, I just want to say, being a beginner is really tough. Is so tough if you are one of those people that is going to a class and you're feeling so inflexible and so lacking of mobility. It's going to be really hard, but keep showing up. Okay, keep showing up. The discipline is you're just going to reap rewards, and maybe it is going to take some months for you to start to see them, but when you do, you're going to feel so proud of yourself. You're going to understand yourself more, and it's going to be amazing. But actually recognizing that it is really hard being a beginner is important, because it's not easy, right? It's not easy.
It took me 6 months.
Did it? Is that what it is?
In Ashtanga.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
6 months. It took me a year to get really, really invested.
Yeah. How often?
I don't know what drove me to stay, but obviously there must have been a reward every time. Otherwise I wouldn't have shown up.
It's so interesting. And I feel the same way as well. Like, there are classes, when I had more time, I used to go to a regular 90-minute class actually. And I remember often thinking in the middle, this is really hard. I'm finding this really hard. Like, why am I? And then the next week I was back. Like, it is, something happens, doesn't it? You know that it's actually good for you. How often were you practicing Ashtanga?
Right now, well, back then I was, it's actually quite a short story, but I was doing it once a week. And then I went to this camp for a week, and I understood what that meant, did to me. I mean, yoga twice a day, it completely changed everything. And then our teacher said, well, yoga once a week is actually, that's, she said a word, that's torture.
Oh, right. It's easier the more you go.
Yeah. So yoga at least twice a week, and you'll find completely different effects. And so I started to do that. So back then, 20 years ago, I did Ashtanga 2-3 times a week at least.
Yeah.
But then I didn't have any kids. I had lots of time for myself, But so today, periods of times I don't do any yoga at all, more than my philosophical practice.
Right, yeah. Okay, I want to challenge you. I want to give you a challenge to try and just bring it back in twice a week. Not necessarily longer, but get back onto your mat. Just start self-practice. I think very quickly you'll start a daily habit of just moving and rolling out your mat. You'll love it. You will love it. And just don't put any pressure on yourself to what it needs to look like, how long it needs to be. Just find somewhere quiet. Or
where that mat should lay. Because sometimes I put too much emphasis on everything needs to be in a certain way. I need to have the mat here. I need to have the candles. And all of a sudden, it's too big a project.
Mm-hmm. Someone once gave me a tip that was a little bit life-changing for my practice. And it was to do with meditation, but it works with yoga practice, asana as well. And basically it was like, do not get too precious about where you practice. And actually, in fact, try and practice meditation in noisy places, in places that are really light or whatever it is. Don't get really het up on practicing in a dark room, sitting on a really comfy chair with no sound or whatever it is. And actually, that was just a game changer for me, because now I'm happy to sit here and meditate, and the kids can be running around doing their thing as long as they're not actually bothering me and talking to me. But actually, even if they interrupt me and talk to me, I'm actually okay then, and I can say, look, mummy's meditating, and they'll usually go off and do whatever they need to do. But the stress that we have to do everything perfectly, that you have to lay your mat out in the perfect place for you to practice, is you need to take it away. And so my challenge now, my second challenge for you is just do it in different places around the house. No judgment, just see how it feels.
Thank you. Yes, I will do that. It's been on my to-do list for quite some time now.
No.
So Hannah, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And we are so happy to have Yoga Happy, or Yogaglädje as it's called in Sweden, and launching it in a few weeks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I hope it brings joy to lots and lots of people.
That's what we want to do. We're on this path together. So have a lovely day. I can see that you have a lovely day outside of your home. And I wish you a beautiful rest of the week.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good. So bye-bye until next time.